As dawn was breaking across the Solent on Saturday, one of the world's largest fleets of yachts was gathering for the 79th running of the Round the Island race. 1,754 yachts racing in 13 classes were preparing for the annual 55-mile race around the Isle of Wight, which is a true festival of yachting. As Ellen MacArthur fired the first gun, Class 0, featuring the largest yachts, hoisted their spinnakers in 7 to 10 knots of northeasterly breeze and set off on the first 11-mile leg to the Needles. From the start it was a Super Maxi ICAP Leopard, which stretched her long legs and strode away from the rest. Behind her, the TP52 Team Volvo 1, skippered by Shirley Robertson, had also got off to a great start, as they led the other TP52 Pace away down the Solent. Celebrity helmsmen are always a feature of this race, and sailing superstar Ben Ainslie was skippering Fair Dues, chartered by race sponsor and Ben's personal sponsor, JP Morgan. Ben had left the wheel of Team Origin's TP52 in the Audi Med Cup to fulfil his sponsor commitments and was looking for a good result. Fellow Team GBR sailor Paul Goodison was at the helm of the Volvo 60 Team Volvo 2, while other Olympian and world-class sailors were dotted throughout the fleet. The largest yacht in the race, the 1933-built J-Class Velshida, also had a great start and looked superb with her giant spinnaker as she reached down the island side of the Solent. One yacht in this class was set to make headlines around the world, but not for her performance. Bob is owned by Rob Gray, Sam Laidlaw and BP Chief Executive Tony Hayward, and it was the presence of Hayward on board that set off a frenzy of criticism, especially in the United States, despite Hayward doing his best not to be identified. 10 minutes after the first start, it was the turn of the fastest boats in the race to set off in pursuit of the largest. 4 Extreme 40s were set for a close battle between the 2 Oman sailboats, Masira and the Wave Muscat, Mike Golding's Ikova and Team Metherell in Pindar colours. Close behind at this stage was the largest multi-hull in the race, IDEC. Francis Joyon took her around the world in record time, and here he was out to break his own round the island record of 3 hours, 8 minutes and 29 seconds, set in 2001. Back at Cowes, the starts continued at 10-minute intervals, as class after class joined the long line of yachts stretching down the Solent. The few cruising boats taking the early morning tide out of the Solent were about to be engulfed by the racing fleet speeding up behind. To the surprise of some, perhaps. Leopard reached the iconic Needles turning point at 6:03, an hour and 3 minutes after her start. She jibed outside the wreck of the Varbassi and dropped her Jenica. Behind Leopard came the 4 Extremes, taking the inshore route past the point. They were led by Oman Sail the Wave. Mike Golding's Ekova was next, followed by Oman Sail Masira and Team Metherell. Shirley Robertson's Team Volvo 1 was round next, further offshore than Francis Joyon's IDEC, which rounded at the same time. Velshida made a magnificent sight as she rounded the Needles at 6:10. Close behind came Paul Goodison's Team Volvo 2 and the Open 60 Artemis. Immediately after rounding the Needles, the leaders found a wind hole under the high cliffs. Back in the Solent, the wind came and went, but it was a nice and easy first leg for the 1,700-strong fleet. The mass of colourful spinnakers soon stretched from Cowes to the Needles. For the leaders, the leg to St Catherine's Point was a light wind fetch with holes in the wind mixed with brief gusts off the land, as the Extreme 40s set about grinding down Leopard's lead. All the leaders stayed inshore to get out of the tide as much as possible, except the Extreme 40 Team Metherell. They opted to stay offshore, hoping more wind would make up for the extra tide and distance. As the leaders found a large wind hole on the approach to St Catherine's, the offshore strategy looked as if it might pay off. As puffs came and went, it was IDEC which made the best of them, to creep ahead and round St Catherine's Point in the lead at 7:25. Slightly further out was Leopard, and beyond her was Team Metherell, which had gained from her course further offshore. Behind Ideck inshore came Oman Sail Masira and Ecover, with Oman Sail the Wave at the back of the pack at this stage. As the leaders rounded St Catherine's, it was fascinating to see such vastly different boats, all within metres of each other at the halfway mark. Behind the front six, Belshida and Artemis were having a race of their own, well clear of the rest of the front runners. Back at the Needles, the number of boats rounding the point had increased to a flood, but they were soon brought to a standstill as they turned against the tide, which was still ebbing along the back of the island. In fact, many found themselves going backwards as the high cliffs robbed them of the wind they needed to overcome the tide. This was where the race was won or lost, as navigators made the decision to stay offshore or hug the coast. The winning strategy was the inshore one, hugging the shallows to cheat the tide and pick up the first of a reverse eddy inshore. By 8 o'clock, the leaders were passing Ventnor, beating upwind in a decent but cold force 4 easterly, which was allowing Ideck to stretch away from the smaller extremes. Ideck was first to Bembridge Ledge Buoy at 8:55, about half a mile in front of the chasing extreme Forties. Oman Sail the Wave Muscat had taken the lead amongst the extremes, as she led her compatriot Oman Sail Masira, with Team Metherell in third. Ecover was fifth round, with a very long gap back to ICAP Leopard. For the leaders, the leg back to the Solent was a fetch, and Ideck and the extremes kicked up their heels and flew. In fact, Ideck made it from the Bembridge Ledge Buoy to the finish off Cowes in just 39 minutes. Ideck was the first boat home after 4 hours 24 minutes, but was over an hour outside the record. Oman Sail's The Wave Muscat was second, 3.5 minutes astern, with Oman Sail Masira just 20 seconds behind her in third. Leopard was the first monohull finisher at 10:10, but she slipped to 39th in class on handicap. The next monohull home, the towering Belshida, finished in 5 hours 45 minutes and took the handicap win in IRC Group 0 by over 8 minutes. Behind Belshida came a steady stream of the larger monohulls. Ben Ainsley on Fair Dues took second place in the group from the Swan 65 Ketch Desperado, while Bob took fourth ahead of the TP52 Pace. Meanwhile, the bulk of the fleet was beating or fetching along the south of the island. At Bembridge Ledge, they faced another beat to the forts, as the wind had now swung back to the north. Boats of all shapes and sizes streamed past the buoy, including the lone laser we'd first seen at the Needles very early this morning. Although dinghies aren't allowed in this race, he was clearly enjoying himself. That's one fit sailor, still hiking after 13 miles upwind. The sportsboat fleet were having a good battle, with a mix of J80s, 1720s, Melgers and a lone sonar. In fact, it was the sonar Bertie which went on to win by over 20 minutes on corrected time. The big prizes, though, are for the IRC fleet. Once again this year it was a small boat race, with almost the entire top 20 coming from Division 3D for the smallest yachts. And yet again it was a folk boat taking the honours, this time with Nordic Bear winning from another folk boat, Madeleine, in second. But the real result was the fun had by so many sailors, with over 1,600 yachts finishing the race and very few reported incidents. Next year will be the 80th anniversary of this famous race, and it will be held on Saturday, 25th of June. So put the date in your diary now, as we look forward to a record-breaking number of entries. See you then.